Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, whenever and wherever you're watching from right now. My name is Pastor Grant, and this is online worship with First Christian Church in Sullivan, Illinois. I speak for all of our church family when I say that thank you for joining us, whether it's your first time or your 100th time. We welcome you also to join us anytime in person for worship on Sundays at 10 a.m. Our online gathering here will give you a window into who we are, but you can also check out our website at www.sullivan.church. Now let's quiet our hearts and minds as we enter into a time of worship. Let's pray. God, I thank you for each person participating in online worship right now. I ask that you guide our time together. Please speak to us through your Holy Spirit. May all who join us be encouraged, inspired, and blessed. Amen.
Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. Life is worth the living just because he lives.
It is important that we take some time during worship to lift others in prayer to God. And that may mean praying for specific people or situations or circumstances. During in-person worship on Sundays, we share these things aloud, but online we keep them private for the sake of privacy. However, if you have a specific request or concern, you can share that aloud where you are right now, or you can send it along to me via email, grant@fccsullivan.org. Let's pray. Dear God, we are so fortunate to be gathered by you to hear the good news. We celebrate that we are a community of people, each at different point on our faith journeys, each seeking your healing love and mercy. We are called to witness to the good news of Jesus, who taught us about your love for each one of us and for your magnificent creation. But there are those for whom this word seems a distant hope or experience. They struggle with the difficulties of everyday living, with addictions or illnesses or alienation. So help us to bring the good news to them in gentle kindness and compassionate understanding. Let our actions and attitudes reflect all that Jesus taught. For just a moment, we take a breath and we remember those that we love who are in difficult experiences right now as we pray silently. Lord, you hear the cries of your people, and so we ask for your healing mercies on all whom we lift before you now. We also ask for your healing in our own lives. Keep our hearts open to your love. Help us to be witnesses of your mercy and hope wherever you place us. Thank you for the grace that you have given to us through Jesus, and it's in his name that we pray. Amen. Today's scripture reading comes from John's Gospel, chapter 11, just a few short verses there, giving us a glimpse into a scene in the life of Jesus. So let me share with you, beginning with verse 25. Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die." "Do you believe this, Martha?" "Yes, Lord," she told him. "I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God." May God add blessings to the reading, hearing, and understanding of this word today. For those of you who weren't perhaps able to be here for the Community Good Friday service on Friday, we held sort of a celebration of life for Jesus. Part of that celebration of life was an obituary reading that Dan Beard did. And I find it interesting to imagine what that would have been like. For those who weren't here, I imagine it would have been like the obituaries posted maybe in the Nazareth News, and it probably would have said something like this. Jesus of Nazareth was born in the year 6 BC. He was born to Mary and Joseph, the carpenter from Galilee. He was preceded in death by a father, Joseph. He is survived by his mother, Mary of Capernaum, also by his brothers, James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon, also of Capernaum, and several other sisters. During his lifetime, it was rumored, according to this newspaper article, he received some notoriety and publicity because of unusual occurrences associated with his life, such as the blind seeing, the deaf hearing, and the lame walking. It was also rumored that he radically changed people's lives. More recently, according to the short article in the Nazareth News, last Sunday in Jerusalem, large Passover crowds hailed him as king. Shortly thereafter, the crowds turned against him. This past Friday afternoon, he was sentenced to death by the Roman procurator, Pontius Pilate, representing the Roman Empire in Jerusalem. He was killed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Golgotha Hill, the hill of crucifixion outside the walls of Jerusalem. His burial was in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. His family requests that no flowers be sent, but rather that memorials be sent to the Children's Fund in care of the synagogue in Bethlehem, the place of his birth. So, hypothetically, maybe that's what the obituary would sound like, this short article from the Nazareth News on that Sunday morning, along with all the other obituaries. Now, if that obituary had been printed in the Nazareth News, everyone would have thought that the Jesus movement had ended, right? Its leader was now dead, his disciples had disappeared, the stories of miracles would fade away. That little episode would become one small slice of Roman history. It would have been like a pebble tossed into a pond, would have made a momentary splash, and then the ripples would gradually fade away and disappear. And that's how it was with Jesus of Nazareth. His life was a momentary splash. His reputation, his memory, his teachings would have faded into the smoothness of the sea, except for one unique event. On the third day, unbelievably, they discovered the tomb empty. Jesus of Nazareth had been raised from the dead by the mighty powers of God. He was alive again, recognizable, identifiable. He was alive again in a new way, in a new kind of body that would never taste death. And so they shouted, "He is risen, Alleluia." You see, that obituary, it was wrong. They said he was dead, over and done with. Wrong. They were wrong. The news spread from the angel to Mary, to Peter, to the disciples, to the 500. Did you catch that? The news started with Mary, a woman. So the next time you talk to someone who attends a church that doesn't allow women to preach, remember that a woman was the very first person to preach the good news. But anyway, they became a new people. They became a new brand of men and women who were filled with a new power, this Easter power, this resurrection power. And they were no longer afraid of living because they were no longer afraid of dying. They had a new passion for life because they had an Easter power, a resurrection power within them. Why? Because that obituary was wrong. That obituary said he was dead, over and done with. Wrong. That obituary was incomplete. It didn't tell the whole story. Today, we gather for worship 20 centuries later. We gather from every race and culture and nation. We gather by the hundreds, by the thousands, by the millions. We come to celebrate God's Easter message with hymns and hats and lilies and choirs and trumpets. We come to hear this good news that Christ has been raised from the dead by the victorious powers of God. Christ is risen. Alleluia. And so the question that remains is why? Why do hundreds and thousands and millions celebrate today and through 2,000 years of history? Well, because that obituary was wrong. The story was incomplete. The resurrection powers of God are stronger than every obituary. The resurrection powers of God are stronger than all death notices. But why are you watching today? Why did you happen to decide to watch? Why is it that the sanctuaries of the world are full on Easter Sunday, but comparatively empty the next Sunday? Why is it that we would pack the place by the millions on Easter, but then next week there's plenty of seating? So why are you watching today? Perhaps not next week. Perhaps you're watching today because of tradition. It's what you always do on Easter morning. Easter Sunday, well, yeah, church, that's what we do. Perhaps it's ingrained in you from your childhood. Your mother always expected that you would attend Easter Sunday with her. Or perhaps you're here today because Easter and spring go hand in hand. The azaleas are blooming, the rhododendrons are blossoming, the daffodils are bright. It's the beginning of spring. It feels like spring. It's like Easter in the air. And so you decide, you know what, I need to watch today to enjoy this everlasting cycle of new life in spring. Or maybe you're here today because all of a sudden times are tough for you, for your family. Maybe you and your family are hurting. Maybe you've discovered that you are not as tough as you thought you were. And you've discovered that life is a little tougher than you thought it was. And maybe you just need to be reminded that, you know what, tough people, they're the ones that last. Tough times come and go. And so you want that strength, that power, that resilience that come from Jesus. Or maybe you're watching today because you're one of those Christmas and Easter Christians. You come twice a year on the big holidays. You've got time for that, but those 2 times of worship are really all you need. Church isn't necessarily your thing. Maybe you had faith when you were a child, but you don't have it anymore. You feel badly maybe, but not badly enough to really do anything about it. Or maybe you're watching today because you believe, because this is a part of who you are. You believe deeply that God has conquered death through Jesus, and so you're here today to celebrate, and you're here every week. I don't know for sure why you're watching today, except that I know that obituary was wrong. The Easter poem, there's a great Easter poem that states it this way. The stars shine over the land. The stars shine over the sea. The stars look up to God. The stars look down on me. The stars will shine for 1,000,000 years, for 1,000,000 years and a day. But God and I shall live and love when the stars have passed away. You see, Easter is not only concerned about God's victory over physical death, but Easter is also concerned about God's victory over spiritual death. God raises up both dead bodies and dead spirits. Spiritual obituaries and spiritual death notices are premature. They don't tell us the whole story because God raises spiritually dead people to life again all the time, and I see it again and again and again. I've seen and heard and experienced real-life stories of people who were spiritually dead. They had their spiritual obituary, spiritual death story, but God put new life back into them. And that is also what Easter is all about. And the Easter message is that the awesome power of God who raised Jesus of Nazareth from the dead can miraculously take your dead life or my dead life and make it alive. God can take people who are spiritually dead and give us this resurrection power, this Easter power, a vibrant power so that life is lived with passion for the ways of God. And maybe now's the time. Maybe it's time for you to wake up, to come out from your spiritual coma, to be raised up from your spiritual fatigue by the powers of God. You're watching today, not simply because of tradition, not simply because this is something you do 2 times a year, not simply because you smell spring in the air. You're here today because God wanted you to be here, so that you can listen to this particular message that God raises up both dead bodies and dead spirits. God brought you to this online space today to hear this Easter message. The quiet silence of a heart that believes itself defeated by loss, by pain, by fear. It's our hope nailed to a cross, our own faith depleted at the sight of no movement, a body inert. But it's not the end. At the sound of the gravestone rolling, a new story unfolds. Death has been defeated. Our hope is alive. Jesus is alive. And so we raise our hands in victory. By his resurrection, we are set free. He blows a wind of life and brings us back to the light. He has risen. Our Messiah is alive. He breathes and the darkness trembles. He speaks and our future shines. By his sacrifice, we are now saved. By his grace, we can all rise. So listen today, hear rejoicing in the sky, because the grave could not hold him. The veil has been torn. Our Christ has won over death, over sin, over heartache. By his power, all chains break. He is victorious. He is the way, the resurrection, and the life. And by his wounds, we are made alive. Alleluia. Christ is risen. Let's pray. God, thank you for this Resurrection Sunday. Easter, we call it, but we know the power lies in your resurrection. Power to raise us spiritually from death to life. God, breathe new life into us today that we might feel your Spirit working in our midst and find ways to be attuned to what your Spirit is doing, that we might bring about your kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Our time of offering is helpful for us to commit ourselves to God's service. In this time, we celebrate God's blessings, recognizing that God has called us to love and give and serve others as he leads us. So we thank you for your continued support of the work and ministry of FCC through your gifts that you give either online, through the mail, or when you're in person on Sundays. May you also carry forth this spirit of generosity into the world around you. Would you join me in prayer now over our offerings that are represented among us? Let's pray. God, we bring our gifts to you and offer them as a symbol of sacrifice and service. We seek to share the story of love that fulfills and conquers death. Bless these gifts that we give now and all who give. Use our offerings, our time, our abilities for the good of all your people. Amen. As we prepare now for our time of communion, I trust that you've gathered elements that you may use to participate. If not, you can pause the video right now and go grab something. It doesn't have to be the traditional bread and grape juice as we use on Sundays. We participate in this act of communion, remembering and celebrating Christ's victory over death. Through his sacrifice, we are promised life anew. So as you partake today, accept completely the love and forgiveness that God offers to you. All are welcome to this meal as Christ has invited us. You may consume of the elements at any point that you feel led during this next piece of music.
To
his life and atonement for sin, and open the life gate that all may go in.
And that brings us to the conclusion of our time together for online worship. Thank you again for joining us. I hope it was a meaningful time of worship for you. Now, as you leave this place, go forth in peace and hope, for God is your guardian and guide. Bring news of God's good love to all that you meet. Amen.